Blasphemous is a MetroidVania created in 2019 that has, in my opinion, one of the greatest stories of all time. It's a game that I fell in love with very quickly despite not even enjoying 2D platformers at all. Hello YouTube, welcome back to another video, and if you have been following my channel, then yes, I know this is different from what I usually do, but I just needed to talk about this game. It is so good. I was tempted to do a playthrough of it, but I think Blasphemous is just one of those games that would be a lot better all in one video instead of multiple. Now, I don't want to waste any more time just talking about random stuff. Let's just get straight to the game. Blasphemous takes place in the land known as Custodia, and its citizens are very religious. They are borderline zealots, and even that is understating just how hardcore their beliefs are. The religion that the people of Custodia believe in revolves around the idea of the worship of the god or concept known as the miracle. The miracle is a supernatural entity that became present in the land, and it is the cause for everything in this game. It's a being that's not really understood by us or even the people that worship it. It's supposed to be something that's super far out of reach, something that you're not really able to comprehend. What we do know about it, however, is that the miracle both blesses and punishes its people through the same methods, through pain. You see, the people of Custodia believe that in order to relieve the suffering of the soul, they have to go through physical pain. For example, in the intro cinematic, you see a woman who is beating her chest with this statue, and while she's doing this, she's calling out to the miracle for punishment. And as she does that, the statue turns into a sword, impaling her, resulting in her death. This wasn't a bad thing in her eyes. She wanted this to happen because she believed that it would relieve her soul of guilt, guilt being another word for sin in this game. One last piece to know before we get into the actual plot. The main character you play as is known as the Penitent One, which means one who pays penance for their guilt or sin. The Penitent One is a part of a group of people known as the Brotherhood of Silent Sorrow. However, this group came into conflict with the main church of the game and their leader, Escobar. Now remember, Custodia is a theocracy. It's a land that revolves around religion. So Escobar, being the leader of the main church, is basically the most powerful person in this game, or most powerful human in this game. Now, Escobar saw the Brotherhood as an enemy to the order, so he sent out a warrior to kill them all. This warrior was a woman named Chrysanta, and she is very powerful. She marched her way all the way from the church to the Brotherhood and killed everyone, including us. Okay, now with those two pieces of information out of the way, the game starts. The game opens with the Penitent One, aka us, waking up in a field of corpses. Remember, Chrysanta killed us as well. That means that something revived us. The only thing that could revive us in this game is the miracle. Now, that already raises some questions. Isn't Escobar supposed to be working in the miracle's interest? Why did the miracle revive us if the main church and Escobar saw us as an enemy? This is just one of the many examples of the miracle's actions being very inconsistent with itself. And even when you're playing this game, you don't really have an answer to why it's doing all of this in the first place. However, at the end, it does explain everything. So I'm not going to spoil it now. So let's just continue. After you beat the intro boss and leave the beginning area, you meet a man known as Dea Gracias. Dea Gracias is our guide and a witness to the miracle's actions. He explains that that is his penance. A lot of the main characters in a game have a penance, and what penance is just a way to kind of fix your sins or guilt. It's a sort of principle that these characters all live by. Dea Gracias' penance is being a witness, which means he doesn't really have any power to interfere with the actions of the world. All he can do is just watch by the sidelines and document the miracle's actions. That's it. Ours is silence, and Chrysanta's was blindness. There's a ton of characters in this game. I won't explain each just for the sake of time, so let's just continue. Dea Gracias tells us that the cradle of affliction is what we seek, but in order to get there, we have to open the mother of mother churches. But the only way to open that is to carry out the 3 humiliations and obtain the holy wound of attrition, contrition, and compunction. Okay, so we have our goal. Let's go and do it. To get the 3 humiliations, we have to beat 3 separate bosses. The Ten Pider, who was a man that was transformed by the miracle to live in constant anger and pain. The Tres and Guistas, who are a representation of 3 sisters that did not want to be forcibly married off, and so they prayed to the miracle and it granted their wishes by growing their hair and knotting them into a single grotesque figure. And thirdly, the Lady of the Shard Visage, who used to be a girl who was so beautiful that she was worshipped. However, she did not like this because she believed only the miracle should be worshipped. So she poured burning oil on her face. The miracle saw this act of faith and blessed her by allowing the oil to burn forever. After you beat the 3 bosses and get the holy wounds, you meet 3 entities known as the 3 holy visages. They're these floating heads that carry out the miracle's wills, kind of like prophets or like messengers. It's important to remember that I mentioned these three because later on they'll come back into play. So just keep that in your head. Okay, so we have all three wounds. Let's go open the mother churches. This church, it's massive. You actually end up running out of stuff to catch on. The only thing that we could use is an elevator, but it's inoperable. And the only way to use that elevator is to get 3 masks that act as a key. Each mask is hidden behind a boss, so we have to beat 3 more bosses for it. First is Exquisito, whose mother was burned at the stake for being a witch, and Exquisito was blindfolded so he would not witness it. Meliquidus, the exhumed archbishop. This boss is actually kind of cool since you're not really fighting him, but the arms and his followers that are moving his body. And finally, Curious, returned by the flames, who was a man that was wrongly burned at the stake for heresy. Yet after the flames had burned and killed him, the miracle had called him back and he was then revived. On one hand, you have the miracle punishing people, and on the other hand, you're having him help people. Whenever I played through this game, I couldn't tell what was going on. And I guess that's what they were looking for, since the miracle is supposed to be like this otherworldly concept. You're not supposed to get its action. You know, it's working in mysterious ways. But we do have an answer for it. It's at the end of the game, so you know, if you're kind of getting confused, don't worry, it's all gonna get answered soon. After you get all 3 masks, you can now activate the elevator and rise up. After you get off the elevator, you end up meeting Chrysanta again, who stands in your way one last time. It's a really cool fight. That's definitely one of my favorite in this game. And I just need to say that this boss was so hard, man. It was so goddamn hard, dude. I didn't think a 2D game could make me this. It took me like 3 hours just to get past this. It was so bad. At one point, I just wanted to get my arm and shove it right up my... After you beat her, you don't actually kill her. She just runs. But she does come back into play later on, so we'll get back to that. There's still one more boss standing in your way, and that is Escobar. Now, Escobar's story is pretty interesting. He had been this religious leader to uphold the miracle's will for a very long time. However, there was actually a period where he claimed the miracle had forsaken the people of Custodia because it would not answer their prayers. This led to something called the Age of Turned Thrones. The miracle had punished him for his blasphemy and caused his body to turn into this huge tree. And then it burned the tree for 90 days. But after the 90 days were done and all of that burning was done, it created this huge mountain of ash that acted as the last hurdle between anyone reaching the cradle of affliction. Once you beat him and you continue ahead, you see the cradle of affliction and you meet with Dea Gracias again. He tells us that we have freed Escobar from his torment and now his soul can walk on the other side of the dream. Now, the dream in this game is kind of like a gateway between this life and the afterlife. It's not really a heaven or hell, but kind of like a purgatory where souls are kind of stuck. Dea Gracias continues to say that our final communion with the miracle is here and that all we need to do now is climb the mountain of ash and reach the top. Now finally, we are at the ending of the game. There are 3 endings and I'll explain each. Assuming you basically did everything I said in this video and nothing more, you'll get the bad ending. As the penitent one climbs the ash, he starts to realize that his feet are getting slower and slower with each step and they sink more and more. Eventually, you get so slow that the ash swallows him up completely until his body is never seen again, making it so that he could never reach communion with the miracle. The post-credit scene of this ending shows Dea Gracias stating that the miracle shows no mercy to sin or sinners alike, not even us. He takes out our helmet with our bodies seemingly gone and places the helmet next to our dead brothers, telling us that all of our effort has led to nothing and that we will remain anonymous with no impact on the world, never to be remembered. Yeah, it's pretty depressing. The second ending, which is the neutral ending, is obtainable after you complete an extra step in this game. Before you even reach the end game, you'll come across these confessor statues. The point of them from the lore is to relieve you of your guilt, but like gameplay mechanic wise, they just keep your magic bar full. However, one of them has an item laying around called the Immaculate Bead. At first, this seems like nothing, but the more you die with the item, it starts to transform more and more, turning darker and darker. Eventually, after dying enough times, the bead will turn into something called the Weight of True Guilt. It's important not to stop with just the item. Every time you come across these statues, you need to break them and enter the portal that opens up. It's pretty easy. All you do is clear the waves of enemies. It's not hard at all. Just make sure you do that. Don't stop with just the item. After beating Escobar and talking with Dea Gracias, you can now climb the Mountain of Ash. This time, you're not slow at all. You can run it up and your feet do not sink anymore and your speed stays constant. You can get to the top of the ash and begin your final communion with the miracle. The penitent one sits on the chair and impales himself with his sword. Once he does this, roots start to grow throughout his body, causing his death and imbuing him into the throne forever. Some time seems to pass and we see people praying to him. It starts with one person, then grows more and more into hundreds and hundreds of people. Dea Gracias explains that the penitent one had completed the last sacrifice to finish off penance and guilt, ending the ungodly will of the miracle. But unfortunately, the miracle could not be beaten this way. It would never let penance end. Some more time passes and we hear footsteps approaching our dead body. It turns out to be Chrysanta, who takes out the sword from our body, releasing guilt once again and effectively restarting the whole cycle all over again. The third ending is the true ending to this game. To get this ending, you have to do everything like I said earlier with the Immaculate Beads. You also have to do a side questline where you meet with a girl named Perpetua. I won't get into like each step of the questline. I'll just kind of skim it and go over it. The quest will lead you to the fourth golden visage. Remember previously when I said that there were 3 golden visages? Well, there's actually a 4th one. The 4th visage goes on to tell us that it will help us after we get its missing eyes. After we get the eyes and give them to the visage, she starts to go over this whole tangent about the miracle and like how to beat it. I'm not going to say every single word, but I'll just summarize it real quick. The visage basically awakens our sword and makes us stronger. She also tells us that in order to beat the miracle, we have to free the most devout believer in Custodia, that being Chrysanta. With our new sword, we can do exactly that. We go and fight Escobar again and climb the mountain of ash once more. This time, however, when we meet the throne, it rises and carries us to the other side of the dream, known as the Eternal Procession. As you walk further and further, you find Escobar again, stating that the miracle had called him up to be its guardian once again and to stop us. We then fight Escobar again, but this time we aren't alone. Chrysanta is here to help us. With the 2 of us together, we kill him once and for all, and now we can witness the truth of the miracle. These beings are known as the High Wills. They are the manifestation of the miracle, and they have been behind every single action in the game. Every blessing or punishment in this game was because of them. They talk a lot, but what they end up saying is that they didn't create Custodia or the people. Creationism doesn't really work like how we think it does in this game. In this game, God didn't create the people. People created God through their beliefs. It's kind of a confusing concept. All that faith and belief manifested these high wills into existence, basically meaning that the high wills only exist because faith exists. Now, despite these 3 beings being behind every single action in the game, the miracle and the high wills are still somewhat independent. It's not really understood how this dynamic between the 2 work. But the way I personally see it is that the miracle is like a source of energy, and the high wills are just able to manipulate and use that energy for power. So why did the high wills do all this? I mean, why cause so much suffering and blessings throughout Custodia? Well, the answer is simple. It's to keep the people of Custodia worshiping them. Remember, they only exist because of faith. If Custodia stops believing in the High Wills, then the High Wills will cease to exist. If the High Wills had just continuously punished them over and over, sending disease, torture, death, calamities over and over again, then Custodia would have just lost faith. I mean, what's the point of believing in the High Wills if all they're going to do is just punish you with no end? On the other hand, if the High Wills had just shown constant blessing one after the other, then the people of Custodia would have become complacent with the blessings and comfortable in its luxury. They would stop worshiping the High Wills because then what's the point? They're already getting all the benefits, there's no point. But if you do both, you show them punishment, and when the people pray, you give them blessing. You keep them in this constant cycle of looking up to the High Wills and believing in them, making them stronger and stronger. The neutral ending is what the High Wills most likely wanted. We get rid of Escobar and keep the status quo, while also reinforcing the faith of Custodia, making the High Wills stronger than ever. In the true ending, before they knew it, we were in the eternal processions ready to kill them. That is why they revived Escobar, so that Escobar could protect them one last time. After we kill the High Wills and end the miracle, the sword we carry starts to turn to dust and we die. Remember, we were revived by the miracle, so because we killed the miracle, there was nothing else keeping us alive. Chrysanta is seen carrying us with Dea Gracias following, and they place us into a tomb to finally rest, but never forgotten. A lot of time passes, and we seem to be in either Custodia or a new land entirely. A beating heart descends from the sky with a figure inside that looks as if it is about to be awakened. And that is the end of Blasphemous. No one really knows who that figure was inside the heart. There's a lot of theories going around. Some people think it's the penitent one being reborn into like a new time. I personally don't think that. I think it's the miracle sort of becoming aware and reincarnating itself into a physical manifested being. I think that just makes a lot more sense. What we do know is that there is a sequel coming out, is confirmed for 2023. I'm super excited for it. I cannot wait to play it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want a more extensive story analysis of this game, I'll link a video down below that's like 50 minutes long. It gets super into it and explains a lot of the smaller details. Please like and subscribe, comment, whatever, do all of that. If you want some more of my content, you can check out my Resident Evil and Elden Ring playlist. I'll link those down below too. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm out. Bye.